Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, finishing up the shift, about to head home. I want to talk to you guys about something that I was thinking about today. There's been a lot of interesting things that have happened over the last 2.5, 3 weeks. I was thinking about, the question about man versus bear. If you guys aren't aware, and I'm sure you are aware that, like, a couple of weeks ago, there was a question that was being asked on social media. Would women rather date? What was it? Was it date or run into? I think it was. Would women rather run into a man in the middle of the woods that they didn't know, or a bear? And this became a hot topic. People were talking about it on TikTok. They were talking about it on Instagram and on YouTube. And there was a huge debate on social media. Like, people were legitimately taking sides and getting upset. Even my wife and I, we did a podcast about it. And about 20 minutes into the podcast, like, I could feel myself getting frustrated because she was trying to explain to me why she would rather date a bear or be with a bear in the woods. It was crazy, right? So then after that, what came after that? We had the Drake and Kendrick situation, right? And everybody got all into this rap beef, this rap battle between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And what came out of that? There was a lot of things that came out of it. Some very salacious information, some scandalous information. Both people on both sides saying some really dirty shit about each other, just a lot of mudslinging. And then over the weekend, we had the situation with the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, where he's talking about his religious beliefs and his beliefs in terms of what women should do, how they should work, whether or not they should work outside the home and have a career. And so as I'm thinking about all of these, like, hot button topics, and God, I could totally get into the Palestine-Israel thing, right? There's one common thread with each one of these situations. And I was thinking about it today. What was it? It's truth. In each one of those conversations, the man versus the bear debate, the Drake, Kendrick Lamar beef, the Israel-Palestine issue, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker. In each one of those situations, there is a nugget of truth. And in a lot of those situations, there's a lot of truth, right? But there's truth in each one of those situations, no matter which side of the equation you fall on. If you think that the woman should pick the bear, there's some truth to why that would be right. If you think the woman should pick the man, there's some truth as to why that would be right. All of the negative things that Kendrick Lamar said about Drake, there's some truth there. And all of the things that Drake said about Kendrick Lamar, there's some truth there. There's some truth to the things that people feel on the Israeli side of the debate. There's some truth to what people feel on the Palestinian side of the debate. There's some truth in what the guy said that kicks for Kansas City. And there's some truth to all the people that feel differently about what he said. The message that I wanted to share with you guys today, and how this relates to not just private security or working in law enforcement, but in general, just communicating with people, is that each one of us is given an opportunity when we have truth. And no matter what we're talking about, there's generally at least a little bit of truth. When we're sharing our messages, we have to remember that we have one of two things that we're going to potentially do. We're going to either build a bridge towards that truth, or we're going to build a wall towards that truth. I want you to hear that again. In every one of these situations, in every one of these instances, in every one of these discussions, there's truth on both sides. The problem is that when people are sharing their viewpoint of the truth, they're doing one of two things. They're building a bridge towards that truth, or they're creating a wall against that truth. You're never doing both. You're doing one or the other. When people are talking about the man versus bear debate, and I know it sounds silly, but this was something that was, like, a sore subject for my wife and I. Like, we literally were kind of arguing about it. And when I was trying to give my opinion as to why that was the wrong decision, the way that I was coming at her, the way that I was talking to her, the tone that I was using, it was validating all of the negative things that she saw in men in general. I was building a wall. And ultimately, like, at the end of the day, later on that night, when we had long forgotten about the conversation, when we had moved past it, she leaned into me and she said, when I'm telling you how I feel about men, when I'm telling you about how I feel about my experiences, when I'm telling you about what I've personally gone through, I don't want you to tell me why I'm wrong. I don't want you to tell me why what I'm saying is stupid. I want you to hear where I'm coming from. Because you doing that and you cutting me off and you not listening to where I'm coming from, it doesn't make me want to see your point of view. And when she said that, it was like, and I apologized to her. I said, look, I don't want to ever be the kind of person that you feel is not listening to you, validating where you're coming from, or hearing your experience. Guys, I want to share with you that a day after that, she told me a story about not necessarily being raped, but being in a situation long before she met me where she didn't feel good about how the situation had gone down. She didn't feel comfortable. She didn't feel that she had any way out of this situation. And in her mind, the only way that she could safely get out of this situation was to consent to this encounter with this person. I have been with my wife for 8 years, and she has never shared with me this story. She's alluded to the story. She's somewhat hinted at the story, but she's never told me the entire story until she made it clear to me that in the conversation that we were having before, that she didn't feel like I was truly listening to her, that she didn't feel that I was truly creating that bridge where she could feel comfortable sharing that truth. And when I took the time out to say, look, I'm sorry, I hear where you're coming from, and I want you to know that it's important that I let you know that you being open and honest with me is important. I'm not going to shut you down. I'm not going to tell you why you're wrong. I just want you to share with me how you feel about this situation. I tried to build that bridge as opposed to putting up that wall. And by doing that, she shared with me something that was extremely, extremely difficult for her. And something that has probably shaped the way that she views things, the way that she sees things, the way that she interacts with me, how she feels about children. All of us in any situation where we are communicating with other people, we have a great opportunity. I would say that we have a great responsibility to always try to build a bridge towards the truth that we're trying to get across to people. In the capacity that I work, I deal with people that are upset, angry, mentally challenged, dealing with the worst day of their life, literally living in the streets, not knowing where their next meal is coming from, fiending for drugs. And when I have to get my message across to them, which is generally something they don't want to hear, you can't be here. You can't plug your phone in here. You can't shoplift here. You can't vandalize here. You can't do drugs here. How do I get that message across to someone in that state of mind to where it doesn't lead to a situation where we're fighting, where I potentially have to hurt or harm this person, or they potentially hurt or harm me? The only way that I am able to get home at night with no more holes than I came to work with is to try and build a bridge of understanding, a bridge of empathy, a bridge of compassion. And I know that sounds silly, but short of that, I build a wall. And with those walls comes resistance. And with resistance comes potential violence. Anything that you guys are doing, anything that you're talking about, anything that you're involved in, you have to try and always communicate with people from a position of equal benefit. Benefit for you, benefit for them. Understanding for you, understanding for them. Everything that we're dealing with right now, from the most silly, stupid, insignificant shit, Drake beef, Bear versus Man, Kansas City kicker, anything. The reason why we're all having these problems, the reason why people are so upset, the reason why people are so angry is because everybody is shutting down, taking their side, and only listening to their point of view. You have to open the bridge. That does not mean that you have to agree with everything that you hear. You don't have to agree with the other side of the debate. You don't have to agree with the other side of the conversation. You don't have to agree with the other perspective. You just have to be willing to hear it. Because if you're not willing to hear someone else's perspective, if you're not willing to hear where someone else is coming from, they're not going to be willing to hear where you're coming from. And if you truly believe that the position that you have, if you truly believe the stance that you're taking, if you truly believe that what you believe in is truth, then you can't build a wall. Because there's no way for that person to see where you're coming from. It was heartbreaking to me to realize that there was something that I have been doing. And guys, I love my wife with all my heart. And I would never in a million years want her to ever feel that she can't tell me something or she can't open up to me. And we have a great relationship. We never argue, we never fight, but there's something about the way that I have carried myself in conversation, something about the way that I've projected towards her, where she did not feel that she could open up and have that conversation with me. And that was literally, when I say life-changing, it was life-changing, because I don't want to ever be in that position. And I know for a fact that with my kids, there are walls all throughout our relationships. I know that I've created walls with my kids. I know that I've created walls with other people in my family. And if you're listening to this, if you've gotten this far, you've probably done the same thing. I talked to a guy today about my age, you know, who's just going to start working here. He just got hired today. And he was telling me of a strained relationship that he has with his daughter. And it was almost verbatim a situation that I had with my daughter a few years ago. We're always creating walls, especially as fathers, right? We want our daughters to live a certain way, to carry themselves a certain way, to dress a certain way, to not date this guy, to not go to that, dance or concert, anything and everything. And every time that we push our will, we're creating walls. And we win that small little battle, and then we lose the war where they're not sharing with us something way more important. Something way more important that we definitely should know about. We should definitely be involved in. But because we chose to create a wall with an outfit or a concert or a guy that she wanted to date, now they're closing off in other areas. That is why this is so important. Now, for me, I'm pushing 50. Like, the best years of my life are probably behind me at this point. But for some of you, if you're younger and you're listening to this, please hear me when I say this. It's not okay to shut people off. It's not okay to shut people out that don't agree with you, that don't affirm you, that don't believe in what you believe in. We are at a very, very, very dangerous time where you cannot disagree, you cannot have a differing of opinion, and you cannot have a conversation without getting to the point that you're protesting, rioting, canceling. It's not going to work that way, guys. And it definitely doesn't work that way in your life. Okay? All right. I'm going to see what we got here real quick. Shout out to the security guard. Okay. Somebody says, you seem like a good guy. I try my best. Someone says, what changed or helped the relationship? The fact that you see it as a battle is the problem. Yeah, my relationship with my children has gotten much better. My relationship with my wife is amazing. I have a great relationship with her. However, there was this one aspect that she had never shared that with me. And it made me realize that even though you can have a great relationship on the surface, even though you can have a great relationship in reality, there are still walls that are being created. And it's our job to recognize that and to fix that. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with her, just on Sunday, where I truly came to her and said, I am sorry. I'm sorry if I've made you feel that when you're trying to tell me how you see something, how you feel about something, that I am constantly stepping on that and trying to, in a way, big dog you, right? We do that. People who've gone to school and have an education, they're always telling their families, like, look, you don't get it. You don't know what you're talking about, right? People that have a little bit more life experience, they'll do that. You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't been there. People tell me that all the time. I will point out things in law enforcement that are a clear issue, right? Something as simple as a First Amendment audit, right? First Amendment audit, someone stands on the side of on a sidewalk, a publicly accessible sidewalk, and they hold a camera like this. And someone will come up and say, hey, you can't stand there and film. And it's clear that they're standing on public property. They have the First Amendment right to film, and they'll call the cops. Now, if a police officer shows up, he's law enforcement. His job should be to come and go, yep, he's standing on public property. He has a First Amendment right to film, and tell that person, hey, look, this guy has a right to do this. Don't bother him. 9 times out of 10, that's not the situation. That's not the case. It becomes contentious. There's some noise in the background. Sorry about that. It becomes contentious and things escalate to a point where they shouldn't. Now, if I call that out and say, hey, as a law enforcement officer, your job should be to uphold the law, not to uphold policy, not to uphold feelings. People will say to me, well, you're not a cop. You don't understand what it's like to be a police officer. You don't understand what they go through. You don't have the authority to say that. And that's not true. I don't need authority. I don't need to be a police officer to understand the First Amendment and public property, public right of access, and the ability to film in public, right? But people continually do that to each other. I do that in my relationship with my wife. I've done that, and I probably continue to do that in my relationship with my children. And any and every time that we do something like that, whether it's the police officer and the First Amendment auditor, whether it's me, my wife, me, my kids, you guys in your situations, when we do that, we are creating walls. We're not creating bridges. The better way to do that would be for a police officer to say, you have a very good point. You have a very good point. And you know what? That is their First Amendment right. Here's why when we show up, we approach it from this perspective. Let me explain to you why we do it this way and where we're coming from. Now, I might not agree with that reasoning, but that is a much better approach than to go, stop, shut your mouth. You're not a cop. You don't understand. Do you see the difference? Bridge, wall. Bridge, wall. Listening, digesting, understanding, and then giving your reasoning from where you're coming from and allowing that person to do the same thing. Listen, digest, understand, give you their perspective. At no point in time do you have to agree. A bridge literally has a entrance on this side and an entrance on that side. They never touch. The only thing that connects them is the in between. And that is relationships, conversations, anything. You don't have to agree. But if you cut off one side of the bridge is going to fall down. I know I'm going like crazy on this bridge analogy, right? But it's important to me. All right. It's getting to the point where it's time for me to go home and eat some dinner. Let me see what I got on here. The fact that sound tough. Better relationship. Truly, the best years of your life are surely yet to come. You have love and compassion like no other, and obviously have the curiosity and self-reflection needed for new growth of your garden. I love that. That was Colise, I believe. Thank you. That was very sweet. That was beautiful. Young people lack perspective, but you can't tell them what to do. Give information and options. That's the best you can do for them, if that's what you're talking about. You can't pass a psych, physical agility, or background. You're a security guard. You don't understand. Yeah. All right. Sound advice. Thank you for sharing this. Absolutely. You're wearing more tactical gear than SWAT. Why can't you do a damn thing? I guarantee you I don't have more tactical gear than SWAT. I promise you that. All right. R&D says, love your videos. I appreciate that. Hey, guys, listen. Thanks for letting me ramble and talk about this. A little disjointed tonight, but I really wanted to share that because I thought each one of those issues, it came down to a lack of building bridges. I thought that every one of those topics over the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, there was so much truth in all of it. There was truth in what each person said in the rat beef. There's truth in what the guy said, you know, that's the kicker from Kansas City. There was truth in the man versus bear. And each perspective, each side, everybody had great points, but no one was listening to the other side. No one was listening. And I'm like, man, this isn't good. Like, how have we gotten to this place? And it's because we continue to build walls. Okay? Build those bridges. All right. Y'all be safe. Have a great night. And I will be back on here tomorrow night with another topic. Y'all be safe. Watch your back. Be great.